What has been hard about having to love your neighbor differently? What's been the challenge?
My personality is I'm very much a hugger, and so the challenge is, how do I make that connection through a Zoom meeting? I don't- That's very challenging, and that's been very tough. So it's just allowed me to, okay, this is what we've been given. What are you going to do about it? And so, okay, I got to find the best. I've got to get out of my comfort zone, and um, because that feeds me. It being able to I don't know, connect with, whether it be a church member, a staff member, a patient, a family member, and I have had to learn how to do that differently, with not being able to embrace someone or see them face to face, and so that's been a huge challenge for me.
I'm always humbled when I find myself in situations when I'm invited into families' their homes, and maybe someone's dying, and that is a really sacred space, and that's people are vulnerable, and I don't take that for granted. What you put in language of your vocation is a gift.
It is. So yes, you come into a person's home, and they're on their end of life journey, and I look at it as one of the most intimate times in a family's life, a person's life. It's like the birth of a child. It's just at the end, and you are supporting them. And what are what do I need to know about that person to best take care of them as they approach the end of their life? And for someone who has lost their independence, they're now dependent on a family member, they've lost control. That's vulnerability. And so you go in and you support them, and you can't support them without loving them and being in that moment with that person and with that family. And that's when I talk about how, there's a lot of self care that goes into the vocation that I'm in, because you put, if you're in this type of position, if you're a hospice nurse, then you're only going to be effective if you're truly there with the patient. And so you're putting everything that you have, your emotions, into um, giving that patient what they need at the end. And it could be as simple as I had a patient who had was born in this home. She had lived in there for 72 years, and it was not a safe structure for any of us to be in. And we wanted to take her out of her home where we felt like she would be safe, and it would be safe for us to care for her. And, you kneel by her bed to tell her this, and she grabs my hand and says, All I want to do is die at home. I've lived here for 72 years. That's my wish." And so feeling that, and just being there with her in that moment, we're like, we know, what can I do to make this happen? And so it took few extra hours and a few extra resources, but we made it happen, and she died in her home, and that was her wish. And as a nurse, as a person, as a Christian, for me to go home and lay my head on the pillow at night, that's the most rewarding feeling you can ever imagine. I get I'm very passionate about that.
Do you have a memory when um, in your vocation, you walked away from an experience and thought, I need to thank you, or I owe you more than you owe me in terms of what I just uh, gave
Absolutely.
you. You gave me. Do you have a memory where you just want to hold on to that and say,
I do. I absolutely do. It was Christmas Eve. It was 2 years ago, and I was just happened to be the nurse on call, and we were headed to our Christmas Eve service, and I got a phone call, and that there was a patient that needed to be admitted, and no other hospice would take the patient, and what are we going to do? And so I called the medical director, explained to him the situation, and he said, absolutely. Do you need me to come with you? And I said, let me get out there and let me see. So I drive up it was way out, way out. And I pull up, you have to go through all these low water crossings, cattle guards, and I'm not sure I was going to find my way out after dark. But I get out there and there's a very, um, it was a very small, modest, not well built home. And I pull up and a man comes out and he said, I'm so thankful that you're here. I just don't know we don't know what we're going to do. And I walk in and very 2 rooms total. And there were 4 people living in there. And I walk in and his daughter is laying in the bed and she's 32 years old. And she had recently been released from prison and she was dying. And nobody would come out and admit her. So I sat next to her and talked to her, talked about what her wishes were. And I was really wanting to talk about what was physically wrong with her. And she wanted to talk to me about um, spiritually where she was suffering. And so I listened and I didn't really have to say anything. I just listened. And I did not realize how impactful that was for me just being present. She, I was there several hours. And when I got ready to leave, she just grabbed my hand and said, thank you for listening. And I was like, wow. And she said, I just have one wish before I die. I've never been baptized, and I want to be baptized. And so I said, we'll make that happen. And so I did everything that I needed to do, and I got her comfortable, and I walked out of there, and the father came and he said, I've never heard her open up to anybody and say those things. Um, but she's never had the opportunity. And he said, do you think that you can get somebody out here to baptize her? And in my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to make this happen. So I called the chaplain on call. On Christmas Day, he went out and baptized her, and she died the day after Christmas.
wow.
And I, it's hard to explain, but um, I walked away with such a um, peaceful feeling for her um, because I could tell she was at peace. And so I'll never forget that feeling. Um, so that's something that I will carry with me forever.
It feeds your soul.
It does. It does. I saw Jesus that day, you know, and what can be more awesome than that?